Oh yes, I know. Oh yes, I know. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes, I know. Oh yes, I know. Oh yes, I know. Freedom is coming. Oh freedom. Oh freedom. Oh freedom. Freedom is coming. Oh yes, I know. Oh freedom. Oh freedom. Freedom is coming. Oh yes, I know. Oh yes, I know. Oh yes, I know. Freedom is coming. Oh yes, I know. Oh yes, I know. Oh yes, I know. Oh freedom. Oh freedom. Oh freedom. Freedom is coming. Oh freedom. Oh freedom. Oh freedom. Freedom is coming. Oh yes, I
Good morning. Oh, let's try that again. We really have to practice this being live stuff here. Okay. Good morning. And I know all of you who are watching us on the live stream are also doing a really good job of that. So thank you. Welcome. Welcome to the Mount Diablo Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm the Reverend Leslie Takahashi, and my pronouns are she and her. We are a tradition that covenants to affirm and promote the use of the democratic process among us. Democracy has a place of reverence among us, so we are glad to welcome you on this day that is set aside for the celebration of democracy. Though you do not have to believe a creed to be comfortable among us, we welcome you in the spirit of those beliefs, which you can learn about on our website. If you are visiting and want to learn a little bit more about who we are and our values and beliefs, or about the particular way we interpret them here in this congregation, please fill out one of our actual or online visitors cards and check out our resources on the website. If you would like to know more about us, please complete our visitors card to let us know you are interested in getting more information. And this morning, we want to give a special virtual welcome to the members of our congregation in Napa who are joining us today virtually. So we're really glad to have them with us today. Yay! I hope you can hear the enthusiasm from the folks gathered here. We are always a busy congregation, and I want to make just a couple announcements. One is that my colleague, the Reverend Rodney Lemery, is on family leave at this time, so we are asking that you do not contact him for any MDUUC business. I am working with our amazing volunteers and staff to ensure that we have coverage of the areas that he is responsible for. The conversation about race in the UUA will be rescheduled to a later time, so we will not be holding that today. We do have an important movie next Sunday, which you can learn about in our Friday email and on our website. It's on climate change, and it will be held here on campus. We now have the capacity to hold movies here, and we hope you'll join us after service next week. Next week will be our last scheduled outside and hybrid service, and so we hope you'll also join us here. If you haven't had a chance to be on campus, come and join in. It's really lovely to be here. We also have a porta potty that has been installed on our campus to allow people access to campus even when the buildings are not open. And it is located in the front of the Gil Martin building. And before 100 people need to tell me that's not the best place to put a porta potty, can I just say we got an accessible porta potty, because those are our values. And there was really only 1 or 2 places it could go. The other one would have been right here, okay? So just, it's what it is. But it will help us in the summer when more of our staff are on break. Friday night, we will be having a game night, and I am excited to host that. We had a lot of fun doing one a couple months ago, and I would love to have some volunteers if anyone's around and wants to help out. The patio is quite lovely at night. And I want to give one more plug to our UU Summer Camp, which is coming up in just a couple weeks, and our on-campus religious education summer programming, which is underway. So to find out all that's happening here, please go to www.mduc.org and our virtual calendar under the News tab. You can get all the links and register for events there. This continues to be a time of difficulty for folks, and so please contact me if you are in need of a listening ear or of financial support, which we have. We are glad that California has extended the rent moratorium to the end of September for our state, but we also know that there are people who have not been able to work in the normal ways and who are in need of financial assistance. So please do not hesitate. Asking is a gift you give the community. Welcome to this beloved community.
Hi, good morning. My name is Nisa Matt, and I use she, her pronouns. And I was fortunate to be one of your delegates.
Good morning. I am Andrew Oswald, a member of your Board of Trustees. My pronouns are he and him. Mount Diablo Unitarian Universalist Church is a welcoming faith community. We begin our services by reading our mission together. We bring to life our Unitarian Universalist values as we seek truth and work for justice, nurture compassion and courage, reach out to each other and to our larger community of faith, bridge the divisions that wound the human family, transform ourselves and our world. We're so glad to have the ability to continue with our hybrid programming on campus. We look forward to welcoming more smaller group activities in this mode over the summer as we prepare to re-enter our buildings in September if all remains the same. In light of the various health concerns, the unvaccinated status of our children, and the needs of the medically vulnerable, we're asking you to be masked during worship and to use generous consideration to other events. Remember, we have people with a variety of health concerns among us who can continue to participate with us if we take community caring precautions. Currently, our caring space is located in the upper patio, back there. It's for those who need to remain unmasked for health reasons and for those who need a space with more distance. Connecting to one another is so important. We encourage you to stay connected, whether virtually or in person as you feel comfortable. Our spiritual practice sessions, justice actions, classes, and discussion groups are all described in the weekly church email and on our mduuc.org website. How wonderful it is to connect as we can. And one final announcement. We recently elected our 2021 MDUC Church Board. I'd like to acknowledge our new officers. President Linda Russell. Vice President Ron Annan. Returning as Treasurer Chris Carter. And our new co-secretaries, Davina Smith and Nasa Matt. And finally, welcome. It's good to be together.
My name is Nisa Matt, and I use she, her pronouns. And I was fortunate to be one of your delegates this year to General Assembly 2021. This morning, our chalice lighting words come from our 2021 WARE lecturer, Stacey Abrams. Effective leaders must be truth seekers, and that requires a willingness to understand truths other than our own.
Hi, my name is Marina, and I am the Assistant Director of Lifespan Religious Education, and I use she, her pronouns. Today is Independence Day, which is a national holiday where we celebrate the day the United States declared independence from Britain. And I think Reverend Leslie has something special to show us. Does anybody know what this is? What is it? The American flag. Yes, so because of today's holiday, I've been thinking about the American flag. And did you know that the stripes represent the 13 original colonies? Raise your hand if you knew that. Did you know that the stars represent the 50 states of the Union? Did you know that? And did you know that the colors of the flag are symbolic as well? Raise your hand if you knew about the color symbolism. So red symbolizes hardiness and valor, white symbolizes purity and innocence, and blue represents vigilance, perseverance, and justice. Now, this has always felt like a complicated holiday for me as a person of color. Here is a national holiday celebrating a nation so eager for independence, yet so reluctant to bestow the same freedoms to enslaved people who moved our economy forward. For many people, our flag is a symbol of freedom and independence, but for others, it symbolized destruction of land and culture or incarceration of family members. It has signaled to many that they're not welcome. When it comes to our flag, it can get kind of complicated. Some people are proud of it, and some people feel ashamed of it, and some people feel both at the same time. But as our nation continues to evolve and learn and grow, we have an opportunity to help decide what the flag should represent. So I've asked a few friends to come up here and tell us what the flag means and represents for them, or what they'd like it to represent going forward.
Hello, my name is Kayam, and to me, the American flag represents U.S. history and how hard it was to go from 13 colonies to 50 states.
Hello, my name is Cameron, and to me, the flag means that America is a country, because every flag is a country. Every country has a flag, and it means that America used to have 13 colonies, but it now has 50 states.
My name is Neil, and to me, the American flag means that America is a country, and it's my country.
Thank you, Stanley family. And now I would like to invite you all to sing, or we're going to sing, but invite you all to, we're going to send our kids off to the classes. So let's grab our stuff and follow me this way.
May your mind be open to new learning. May your lips bring truth into the world. May your heart know love and your hands do the work justice as you go your way in peace, as you go your way in peace.
My name is Mary Beth Spencer, and my pronouns are she, her, or they, them. Today's call to worship is my reflection on General Assembly. Well, this year's General Assembly, or GA, was different for me. You see, I was asked to be a co-lead for the Accessibility and Inclusion team, which means I was part of what was called the CARE team, a sort of reimagining and expansion of the Right Relationship team. We worked hand in hand with the tech team, the Conflict and Covenant team, the Systemic Justice team, and the chaplains to help ensure that everyone was able to participate in GA in a productive, healthy way. The goal of my particular team was to enable full participation of all people, whether they had a disability diagnosis or not. If a person was unable to access GA for any reason that had to do with anything outside of their control, we were there to help them. Likewise, if they felt like they were being excluded or being discriminated against, I was part of a team that tried to hear what they had to say and to share their experiences with the wider group. All in all, our work was successful. Most people were able to navigate the technology with few problems, particularly once we assisted them. Most people with disabilities knew the accessibility and inclusion team was there to assist them and felt acknowledged. Now, I must admit there were a few failures along the way. I saw individuals and small groups using outdated terms to describe disabled people, people going into affinity spaces with which they did not identify, and people dismissing the experiences of people with disabilities. The CARE team helped to resolve them to the best of our ability as quickly as we could. But I also saw a culture of considering the needs of disabled people as a regular part of daily life. We had everything closed captioned to the best of our abilities. Some apps could just use improvements. Sign language interpreters were available for most sessions in the main room. When people spoke on camera, we identified ourselves by name, pronoun, congregation, and often by describing ourselves for the visually impaired. So saying, I'm a white woman who is fat and wearing a red dress with white polka dots, and I have long brown hair. We still have a long way to go, and we will strive to include disabled people at General Assembly in new and innovative ways. In future years, it looks like GAs will be both virtual and in person. All people, whether they have disabilities or not, deserve the right to actively participate in the national UU business in whatever way they choose. I love doing my part to help enable that. I look forward to being part of the National Accessibility and Inclusion team going forward. I also look forward to bringing all of the skills and knowledge that I learned doing this position back to MDUUC so that we can find ways to include all people in our congregation in the most inclusive ways possible. Together, we can all make this world a better place for all of us. Now, let us worship together.
We invite you to rise in body or spirit and join in spirit. Come and go with me. And it's okay to clap. It's okay to dance. Come with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come go with me to that land. Where I'm bound, where I'm bound.
is the chance to hear from those who go to General Assembly and those who serve as delegates on behalf of this congregation, and we are grateful to have these postcards from General Assembly today.
And my pronouns are she, her, or they, them. I've attended 4 General Assemblies, 2 in person at Portland and Spokane, and then the last 2 virtually. GA gives you the unique opportunity to meet GAs from across, UUs from across the country and in some cases across the world. I participated in caucuses sponsored by DRUM, Diverse, Revolutionary, Unitarian Universalist, Multicultural Ministries. I got to talk at length to a friend I made from last GA, an Indigenous woman who lives in Southern California. She was recently arrested at the Line 3 pipeline in Minnesota. Not many have heard that the water protection movement is still going strong and is needed now more than ever, as the safety of our water is foundational to the healing of our planet. I was able to volunteer this year as a chat host moderator, so I was in the chat rooms. There are 5 regular chat rooms, and the GA hosts have added rooms, specific rooms, just for Black, Indigenous, people of color, transgender, non-binary folks, and LGBTQ plus folks, listening to the needs of the assembly participants. As a chat moderator, I was assigned to monitor 2 rooms at one time, so I would typically be in the BIPOC room and one other room. The GA this year definitely had its divisive issues, and they were evident in the chat rooms. There was a competitive election for 1 seat on the UUA board, when typically the process is a lot like the one we have here at MDUUC, where a nominating committee made up of elected folks comes up with a slate of nominees. At the last minute, they asked for volunteers to moderate the chats while the 2 candidates for this post had a debate. So I also worked during that event. Keep in mind that even when I was not working, it still said moderator by my name, so I could never really give my personal opinions in the chat room. So I relied heavily on separate chats that were going on, one of which was with the other moderators and one of which was with our MDUUC folks. And I relied on them. During the final general session, on the last day of the GA, we were all crispy and tired. Meanwhile, on the main stage, the very last bit of business was an act of social conscience concerning white supremacy, which had been in the works for nearly 4 years. The only options were to delay it for another year and send it back for more study, or to move on and vote on whether to affirm it. While folks spoke for and against sending it back for more study, there were some inflammatory statements in the chat room I was moderating. I immediately asked for help from the lead moderators, and one of them and then another joined the room. The inflammatory statements stopped, but the microaggressions continued. For example, someone questioned the definition of white supremacy. Asking questions is one way that folks get away with feigned ignorance while stirring the pot. Eventually, I had to check out of that particular room in an act of self-care. And the MDUUC folks were there for me in chat. Fortunately, the act of social conscience did pass by a wide margin, reaffirming my hope for this faith movement.
Good morning. My name is Ursula, but Ursula Bartels, she and her. Leslie only gave me 500 words, and I'm a lawyer, so it's going to be fast. Listen up. During GA, there were outside news reports about another mass grave found at the site of an Indian residential school. We heard from an old indigenous UU talking about the pain of those schools that were set up by religious groups. He spoke of the ways in which the schools worked to conform the students to the dominant white culture, cutting their hair, changing their clothes and their work and their language, and teaching Christianity. He spoke of the participation of Unitarians in this work, running one such school. And if you look online, there's more. It made me think hard. Those were the social justice Unitarians of the day. And they were probably a lot more like me than not. No doubt they thought that they were living out their values and principles in doing that work. Pierre Trudeau said yesterday, we as Canadians must be honest with ourselves about our history, because in order to chart a new and better path forward, we have to recognize the terrible mistakes of the past. The truth is that we've got a long way to go. I went to a Zoom workshop on classism. When the participants were asked to write in the chat how they had been impacted by classism in their congregations, the chat immediately filled up with an outpouring of experiences of hurt and shame that UUs have experienced in their congregations. They spoke of how it felt to have to ask for a pledge waiver. They spoke of being unable to afford a ticket to go to the annual raffle. They spoke about feeling less than at the water service with people coming back from fabulous European vacations, donating their water. They talked about coffee hour with people dressed in more money than they had, talked about their kids in the Ivy Leagues. I'm glad that I went to GA. It left me with a lot to process. I hope that our congregation will look together at the statement of conscience that was passed at GA this year and figure out together what we are called to do to dismantle systemic racism.
Good morning. I'm Michelle Carroll. I use she, her pronouns. White woman, dark hair, glasses. For me, this year's GA was a fourth consecutive immersion with thousands of UUs to learn and really to take pride in this congregation. And MDUC, the congregation itself, our leaders, our ministers. New Orleans GA was my first deep learning 4 years ago about what is white supremacy, what is white fragility, realizing in workshops how far the people of this congregation have already come. It was really a great awakening for me. Then, where lecturer Brian Stevenson called on us to get proximate and shone a light on the dehumanization of incarcerated people and of people of color generally in our culture. And we saw decentering whiteness on stage, saw what it should look like, and learned how my liberation is tied up in theirs and in yours. What 4 years have followed, right, in our world and here. MDUC really has moved forward. We publicly bore witness that Black Lives Matter. We offered physical sanctuary, and we've spread the word. Our broader community sees our UU values, and they recognize MDUC as the people who show up for justice. This year's GA theme was Circle Round for Justice, Healing, and Courage, which I think is where we are right now as a congregation. MDUC's board has, in the last 2 years, really gelled. Our finances continue to strengthen. Our leaders, our ministers, and particularly Reverend Leslie Takahashi, have guided us into becoming this virtual community we needed to be. We're strong, we're mission-driven, and we are transforming ourselves and our world. Our president now, Linda Russell, woot, is a national leader in the Beloved Conversations workshops, and it's been a leader for a year here of board goal number 1, making the Commission on Institutional Change recommendations a reality at MDUC. I was proud. My postcard from GA is my pride in being part of the 93% who voted in favor of adopting the statement of conscience that both my preceders talked about, undoing systemic white supremacy, a call to prophetic action. It feels good to be part of making really needed change. Thank you.
This is the time in our service when we take into our heart and into the larger loving heart of this congregation those joys and sorrows that are too great to hold alone. I apologize. The tech staff is looking daggers at me. I want to just say that. Let me start again. Not supposed to wear that. This is the time when we remember that when things of great joy happen or events of great sorrow, we need a community to hold together. And when it is our custom that when we lose a member among us, we light a candle from our chalice. So I'm lighting this candle today for Beverly Borton. Beverly died as our oldest member in June. She was at home, surrounded by her family and her friends. And she was very grateful to have had the time she had during the height of the pandemic with her family, and also to return here to be cared for so well by her family and some very devoted friends. She wanted me to say to you specifically how much she cares about everyone in this congregation and how much this congregation has meant to her. We will have so much more to say about this dedicated person who served this congregation for so many decades at a service celebrating her life, which will be held on September 11th here at 2 p.m. Now, let us just take a moment and take into our hearts all the gifts given to us by Beverly Borton. I'm appreciative to President Linda Russell for assisting me today with our joys and sorrows. I'm asking Linda to light the first candle this morning. A young adult in our community is looking for an affordable housing option to live with a service dog and a cat. Please contact me if you have a lead. Ronna Miller Owens is asking that we light a candle this morning. Ronna is grieving the loss of Sebastian, her beloved companion cat. She writes, I had to help Sylvester over the Rainbow Bridge on Saturday, the 26th of June. It was difficult to watch Tigger search the house for Sylvester. They were bonded brothers. My heart is heavy. I'm asking Linda to light a candle for Errol Reyes and Rodney Lemery. They are glad to share that Errol is back at home. They appreciate the support of this congregation and the space to continue this important time of healing for Errol. Though cards are appreciated, you are asked not to email or call. Sierra Lynn White wants to light a candle of joy for Bill Wentz's new hip. He had surgery last Tuesday and is recovering well at home. Thank you, they say, for all the prayers and well wishes. And I'll ask Linda to light 2 more candles. We also have calendared today, now on our schedule for September, celebrations of life for Bud Lemke and also for Ruth Hirano, who we have lost in this time of being less together. And so please see the MDUC publications upcoming for the specific dates and times, because I know there's only so much we can take in by listening this morning. So let's just light that. We light 2 final candles, one for all those joys and sorrows that remain in the sanctuary of our hearts unexpressed in words today. It's challenging out here, Linda. Don't worry about it. And the other is for our hopes and dreams for both our nation, I will say today, and for our world. We take all of these into the loving embrace of our congregation. Thank you.
out this sacred hour in faith and hope and charity.
Please join me in the spirit of meditation and in the spirit of that deep ask that is known as prayer. Spirit of life, of love, of unity, God of the wider understanding that stretches us beyond our own needs and wants and helps us embrace a larger sense of the whole. We ask for your help today. As we gather here as we can, some of us here together physically and others meeting across the miles but together in spirit, let us begin in gratitude. Gratitude that we are here today and that the world seems a little calmer and a little easier than it did this time last year. We are grateful for that and for the chances to connect, to be together, to celebrate one another, and to care for one another. In spirit, we ask today that we also understand that our gratitude and our joy, our celebration, do not take away our ability to be aware of the need to stay alert and aware, to protect what we love, what is precious and sacred to us. May we in this space, as we gather here together, reaffirmed by one another, remember that love is a verb, and if we love someone or something, or even if we love an ideal that has never been realized, such as the ideal of democracy, we need to make that love active in small and large ways in our daily life. So may we be the ones to understand a higher form of patriotism that is not just about rote repeatings that we are already the best, but rather the small intimations that we love our democratic institutions enough to allow them to evolve and change and to move closer to our loftiest ideals. May we be on this day recommitted to honoring the democratic legacies of these lands, to continuing to work for that more perfect union of which we dream and which has yet to be realized for so many. May we be the ones who continue to believe that all people matter and that all people have a voice and that all people should be counted. Amen. Blessed be. Ashe. Amen.
This is our life. These are the times. We are the people, and the dream is alive. Give us the strength to be humble and kind and respect one another, leaving no one behind. From the mountains and valleys that stretch to the sea, a brand new America is calling to me. I am filled with emotion when that flag is unfurled. It's a brand new America and a brand new world. Now we all have our story. We all have our prayer. We all have our equal. And God is fair. It's a brand new America, brand new. A brand new
Good morning. Hi, I'm Chris Carter, and I'm a member of your Board of Trustees, and I also serve as the congregation's treasurer, and my pronouns are he, him, and his. So as I begin today's call for offering, I'm going to ask you to indulge me briefly in a personal story. A member of the MDUC community recently shared with me some exceedingly kind words. The person paid me a wonderful compliment. And by way of context, many of you have heard a lot of my voice over the course of recent times as we've gone through this spring's congregational forums, as we went through our congregational meeting last month, and as I, as a board member, have with some regularity delivered the greeting that Andrew so ably delivered earlier in this service, or this, the call for offering. I've frankly become a little bit self-conscious about what I might term overexposure. It was in this context that this community member took me aside and suggested that after hearing me speak before the congregation multiple times, I might fit right in at NPR. Now, I suppose how one hears that statement might be a function of whether one is an NPR fan, but let me assure you I am. So I took this as a wonderful compliment. So why, you may wonder, did Chris share the story as a part of the call for offering? Well, in part because these kind words were shared in person. And as I reflected, I concluded that it probably wouldn't have happened had the two of us not been speaking face to face. And we could be with one another only because of our collective support of MDUC over the past year plus, as we have waited for and worked for a time when we can get back together and share conversations in one another's presence. Now, I do want to acknowledge that not everyone is yet comfortable being back on campus, but I certainly hope that the day when we can all be comfortable is not that far away. So I have thanked you many times over the course of the last 2 years as the congregation's treasurer. And today I thank you for your support for MDUC a bit more personally. Thank you for your support and generosity over the last pandemic-dominated year plus, as we have waited for and worked for these days when we have the option to be back on campus and share kind words and share community. And thank you for your current generosity as we look forward to the opportunity to be back inside the sanctuary to my left come September, all things working as we hope. May we all find joy in sharing both our gifts and our kind words as we continue our transition in this post-pandemic time, or toward this post-pandemic time. The ushers will come forth to receive the offering. voice. Please join me in dedicating our offering to the work of this community in transforming ourselves and our world. We dedicate ourselves and our offerings.
Good morning. I'm Sharon Solstice. My pronouns are she, her, and here's another postcard from GA. Meg Riley was one of our co-moderators. She's a retired minister. She and I have this in common. We both came out decades ago as lesbians. I wish I had Meg's words on this subject for you this morning, but I don't, so you're going to have to make do with my interpretation. Back then, coming out publicly meant we could have been expelled, fired, evicted. I had a friend who had been subject to electric shock therapy. It was a different time, and the acceptance of gays, lesbians, bisexuals today is unbelievably different. I never expected to see it in my lifetime. Now, I know that coming out today is still a scary and brave act, and risky depending on who your parents are, where in the world you live. It's a very different experience. But still, in comparison to me, today feels like a new day. We do still have a lot of work to do. The Supreme Court recently issued a highly problematic homophobic decision. And it's not like it was 40 years ago. So the point of all this, and the point that Meg was making, is that the public can change, and change dramatically. And given the level of acceptance of LGBT people today, just maybe that same change going forward will apply to the entire rainbow of LGBTQ plus people. That's my hope. I'm optimistic that that will be so. And as Reverend Leslie says, may it be so.
Good morning. I'm Elsie Mills, and I've been a member, and my pronouns are she and her. I've been a member of MDUC for 5 years. This is my third GA, and one of my favorite parts of GA is the Ware Lecture, named after Harriet Ware, the original donor. Some of the past Ware lecturers were Cornel West, Mary Oliver, Holly Neer, Julian Bond, and the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. At the Ware Lecture on Saturday night, guest speakers Stacey Abrams and Desmond Meade passionately addressed the critical importance of protecting the right to vote and of fighting voter suppression, especially today, as many states are passing restrictive voting laws that disproportionately affect people of color. I was so moved by their commitment to fight for democracy, a key value in Unitarian Universalism. Stacey Abrams said, "This is not about one name on a ballot. It's about millions of people casting their ballots. We can't wait until there's a candidate on the ballot to talk about voting. Voting has nothing to do with politicians. It has everything to do with policy." Desmond Meade is a formerly homeless returning citizen, returning from incarceration, who overcame many obstacles to eventually become the president of the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition. He's the chair of Floridians for a Fair Democracy, a graduate of Florida International University College of Law, and a Ford Global Fellow, and the author of Let My People Vote, My Battle to Restore the Rights of Returning Citizens. Meade was instrumental in 2018 when more than 60% of Florida voters approved Amendment 4 a ballot initiative to restore voting rights to returning citizens, returning to society from prison. Despite overwhelming bipartisan support, as soon as Amendment 4 passed, Florida Republicans began to undo it. The Republican legislature limited the constitutional amendment so that only former felons who owed no money to the state could register to vote. Desmond said, quote, "We know that at the core of most Americans is that the concept of forgiveness, redemption, and restoration as the core. We know that once a debt is paid, it's paid, and the American citizen should be allowed to move on with their life." I encourage all of us to treasure our UU value of democracy and the responsibilities that we are afforded. So what have you decided on your Independence Day resolution yet? You know, like, what specific injustices do you plan to rebel against in the coming year? Thank you.
My name is Evan Yunker, and my pronouns are he, him, and his. For me, this GA was wonderful, with some of the best content I've seen in my nearly decade of attendance. And it was an honor to go to this GA virtually, with the ability not only to connect with other UUs, but also with our own delegation in an ongoing conversation, which I really enjoyed. Not every vote went the way I would have wanted, but in my occasional dissent, I felt heard and held and welcomed in the conversation. I also became aware of national trends that seemed to be taking hold within our UU faith, which I found myself having to pay attention to. In a similar fashion to our national discourse, there are those that are using our faith to advance agendas that are at odds with our core values. Using slick language and well-sounding keywords like democracy and peer review, a small subset of people were able to advance populism in place of democracy and use lies, innuendo, and fake news to try and derail years of work, research, outreach, and discernment that we have done in social justice. It amazed me how many people can be taken in by articulate speakers who can spin such words. And it reminded me how mindful we must be to look not only at what people say, but the impacts their words and proposals have on our continued commitment to our shared faith. In the end, I believe Unitarian Universalists are leaving GA, continuing to steer a path that is based in our common values and relevant to the times at hand. James Luther Adams once wrote, "The prophetic liberal church is the church in which all members share the common responsibility to foresee the consequences of human behavior, both individual and institutional, with the intention of making history in place of being merely pushed around by it. May we continue to be such a positive force in these times."
Before I start, can we just give some appreciation to our amazing GA delegation? And you only heard from some of them, y'all. We have a lot of myths about our democracy, and I believe that we need to be the ones who are willing to name them so that we can actually make our ideals come true. And one of those myths, I believe, is about what it means to love our nation. You know, in my experience, when you love someone, you are willing to be honest with them. If they harm you or someone that you love, if you love them, you don't just allow that to continue. You speak to them from your love because you believe in them and you know that they can do better and that in your conversation you will learn something that will let you live better too. On this day, when we celebrate the acts that led to the United States of America, which is not the only American nation, by the way, we can gather in that spirit of love and say, beloveds, we need to do better. I was glad and grateful that Stacey Abrams and Desmond Meade spoke to us, as Elsie said so eloquently, at our General Assembly of Congregations this year. They joined very distinguished ranks, as you heard, and so many others who have influenced the hearts and minds and souls of the nation. And last night, as I contemplated Mary Beth's call to worship, I was struck that as our assembly works to be more inclusive and ensure that all can participate, a great deal of time and effort is being directed into ensuring that people cannot participate in our greater society. Specifically, that they can't exercise their right to vote, which the late John Lewis, who we lost during the pandemic time, said is almost sacred among us. Census abuse, redistricting, closing polling places, requiring a very narrow range of IDs that are government issued or restricting registration to licensed drivers, the sunsetting of most of the Voting Rights Act, removing tens of thousands of voters for being inactive, which can include people who don't vote except in presidential elections. The list of assaults on voting rights is much longer than I have time for this morning. And last week, though, in preparation for this service, I read Stacey Abrams' book, The Time Is Now, and I really want to commend it to you because I realized, as someone who thinks they're paying attention, that I have not been paying enough attention. The League of Women Voters president in Ohio, when trying to go through a list of people that were going to be removed from the list of voters as inactive, found her own name on the list, even though she had voted in every election. In Mississippi, it was proposed that you would have to pay a notary fee to submit an absentee ballot. And Abrams herself, when she went to vote for herself as governor, with the cameras in tow, the way they do for those things, found that she was told initially that she was ineligible to vote. Now, why is all this happening? There's a lot to this. We can't go into all of it today. But Abrams points out that this new authoritarian populism, as she calls it, is fueled by a change of demographics. While claiming that majority rule is being undermined, the advocates of all these measures to limit voting are doing so because our nation has become two things that they find very frightening. One, we know our nation is becoming less white. The other one is our voters are becoming younger. Estimates are that 40% of our nation is now non-white, and that we have all heard it's only a few decades out before the nation will be what California already is, majority minority. And we're still here, by the way, right? It didn't destroy us. But the other thing that I think people are finding very difficult to conceive of is that millennials and Gen Xers together are now the largest voting bloc in our nation. I don't think the people, yes, that was worth applauding. Go right ahead, John Rasmussen. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. So to preserve the status quo, those who sometimes wave our flag and claim to be the biggest proponents of democracy are now working to undermine its heart, which is our right to vote and to be counted and to have our opinions known. Last night, a delegation of 6 of us joined Faith in Action East Bay at a rally to use this weekend to call and request a path to citizenship be included for the 11 million undocumented people who are already living in this nation, who have been caught in this odd limbo since every path to citizenship has been closed. We have a handout available for you after the service, and some of those folks who were with me last night will help hand them out. It will be emailed out later this week. But the point is that many of these people are the same people that we were all applauding as essential workers. And yet we still have no way for them to get basic services or even to have their opinions known. I did my call while I was at the event last night. It took less than 4 minutes to do. There are many myths among us about democracy. A myth is that our nation has always been the exceptional prime example of true democracy. And while it's true that the particular blend of enlightenment and indigenous thought which undergirds our system is strong, in actuality, we have continued to struggle to realize its promise for all, and we all pretty much know that now. There's another myth that states are taking steps to clean up voter fraud. Instead, what we see is an assault, especially in a number of states, on all these different ways that they can limit who can vote, including people who should be eligible to vote. The truth is they were just the warning shot. And we cannot rest. We need to take the small acts that we can to keep defending our democracy. There's another myth that I think we've relied on a long time, and that is that our Supreme Court will come around and clean up any problems we have with rights. And we've seen week after week now that that is no longer the case for us in this particular era. In recent years, we have seen how love of country can be used as a way to shame and bully. So today, can we start to embody a different form of love, honest enough to see where we still need to work, kind enough to say what needs to be said, committed to the idea that power is not a zero-sum game, but rather an expandable resource, faithful enough to make that 1 or 2 or 3 phone calls, to take that one action, to be mindful to act while we still can. You know, we can be mythbusters, and we can do the small acts. Before we sit down for the barbecue or the recounting of what fireworks were and explaining it to people that maybe have never seen them or watching them on TV here on our part of the world, let's take a few minutes and make a recommitment to democracy and its ideals. It can be by making the calls, by checking out Fair Fight, which is the organization Stacey Abrams founded the year that she didn't become governor of Georgia. Or you can watch the Ware lecture from last week's General Assembly of Congregations, or take any number of other steps that you know to do. We have a lot of myths about our democracy, and we need to be, we can be, we must be the people who keep the true American dream, the one of an inclusive and compassionate democratic system alive. May we be the ones who make it so.
You to rise in body or spirit, join in spirit. Libertad. Liberty is more than waking up free. Liberty is helping one another. Libertad es convivir, decidir, elegir. Libertad es amar, comprender y luchar para que todas tengan libertad.
Before I say the words of our benediction and extinguish our chalice, I want to take a moment and just recognize how grateful we are that all of you are here, and to specifically recognize our staff and the tech crew who make these outdoor services possible. We only have one left that's planned. All things going, and that includes Colin Ketchum, who's in there behind the "Please wear a mask" sign. But I hope if you haven't had a chance to come on campus, you will consider doing it next week. And I just wanted to say thank you a couple times, because it's a lot of work to bring all this out, so thank you. These are the words of Stacey Abrams. With our collective commitments, the best version of America is within our grasp, one where we guarantee a fair chance to shape the discourse, knowing victory is not a given, where we understand that sometimes the fight is the thing. Unless we are committed to the battle for the soul of America, we will forever be held back by its weakest moments. I believe in more because I believe in us. We extinguish the flame of our chalice, but not the warmth of commitment and not the love of peace and unity. May we go in that spirit out into the world, and may we go together, buoyed by these moments.